Awesome. Hey, y'all. I'm Ron Nelson, VP of Sales in the Americas here at Kevel. I've been at Kevel for about 11 years at this point, and it's really cool to see the changes that have gone on, not only in the company, but overall in the advertising ecosystem. It's really cool to see how a lot of the old ad platforms and old advertising models of traditional publishers are really starting to pave the way for what's going on in the marketplace and retail media sector today. It's not too often where you get a model where you can look back into the past and see what the future is going to hold. So I'm going to kind of go over that a little bit today and kind of get a level set of like where we are and where the marketplace is going in the future from an advertising perspective. But before we get into that, and before you have to listen to me talk for 20 minutes, I wanted to have a quick discussion around where we're at today and kind of level set in this room. So by show of hands, who here is actively selling ads on their digital platforms or is currently building out that capability? All right, so it's a pretty good number. Going to go off topic a little bit here. How many of you that had your hands raised think it's easy? 0. That sounds about right. So over my time in the advertising industry, I've learned that it's extremely, extremely hard to build a platform that people are going to love and want to interact with from a daily basis. So what I wanted to kind of go through and kind of level set on is kind of navigating this advertising landscape to make it a little bit easier, because at the end of the day, it's the most lucrative thing that you can do for your site while you're kind of dealing with the thin margins on the other end from a marketplace retail standpoint. The reason that the Amazons, the Etsy's, and the Walmarts are able to do so well and sell at such low prices is their ability to generate other revenue streams that are extremely high margin. And that's exactly what advertising does for a lot of these companies. So I have 3 kids, and I really like to go into story time. So the first few minutes is going to be all about story time, all right? So we are currently here today. Our job is to get to Tomorrowland, right? So you look out into this nice little water here. It looks easy. We're going to go from today to tomorrow. The waters look nice and clear. Everything is all rosy, and yeah, here we go. Let's just go do it. And, you probably look at it and like, I can go swim that. Or take a nice little canoe, and I'll be there in a little bit of time. The problem is that things just start popping up as you try to navigate those waters. The first things, and when you talk about today, we're talking about like third-party ad networks, being able to just slap a JavaScript tag on your page and easily get advertising. You get a check, woo, everyone's pumped, right? But there's a lot of things that go into that. When you look at Tomorrowland, what you're looking at is the Walmart, the Amazons. They've done things on their own. They've used their own first-party data to be able to own their revenue destiny, right? So when you start out in this on these waters, you have to really be mindful of the things that pop up when you're just putting JavaScript on your page. The first thing right off the bat is ad blockers. A lot of devices have ad blockers built into their devices and the browsers. That accounts for about 20 to 30%. So when you go down this advertising path or revenue path, you can automatically cut out 20 to 30% of your overall revenue. That's a lot. Then when you talk about privacy regulation, loss of third-party cookies as they're coming up, putting those third-party JavaScript tags are really not a benefit to you and really hurt your ability to make the revenue that you can make long term. Then we also talk about resources, right? Like there's this resource drain, right? I know, everyone here it's hard to get people to work and get all the people that you need in order to run this advertising program. And that's a huge part of this. When you talk about Tomorrowland and building this fully functioning ad platform, it takes a lot of resources to make that happen. We're talking hundreds of developers and then you have salespeople, and then you have ad ops people. It's a lot. That's a lot of resources to kind of drain what you're trying to accomplish. Then when you're also talking about getting to Tomorrowland, we're also talking about people today and having the lack of flexibility with these third-party ad networks and the JavaScript tags that come along with it. You don't really know what's going on outside of that, right? So you have your own data, they have their own data, and the two don't really mix together from that standpoint. So you also need to be able to kind of build your own from a server-side standpoint and understand what's going into the decision of what's being shown. With these third-party networks, you don't really have that, and it's really, really hard to get that flexibility that you need in order to be successful and generate the revenue that you can make with the amount of visitors that you do have. Then you have the ad tech tax. When you're working with these third-party networks, it's usually about 20 to 30% that they take right off the top of your revenue, right? So when you're a publisher in this instance, all they care about is the number of users that you have and viewers that they have, and then they're going to tag a CPM to that and then take off 20 to 30%. So now when you go back to the rocks that we talked about and ad blockers being 20 to 30%, you add that up and all the things, you're basically losing about 50% of your revenue right off the top. And you can own that, and it's important to understand that. And the last piece that kind of comes up is these beacon calls of personalization and relevancy. With marketplaces and retail media today, a lot of people are realizing that the offers that you put in front of people have to be relevant. They have to be personalized in order for them to engage with it. If they're not, it's not going to be engaged with. You're probably not going to get revenue from it. It's really hard. From a personalization and relevancy standpoint, with these third-party networks, it's hard to do that. They have this third-party data that they're collecting from other sources. They're pumping it in. You have your first-party data. You don't really know kind of where to go with it. And then you end up with these weird ads that feel like you're being followed along the internet based on what you said to Alexa and Siri and all that. There's different ways to do that. And it's hard to do that with these third-party networks. So you're just kind of taking a step back and looking at where we are today. Those are pretty rough waters than we've kind of first settled out into, and it's tough to navigate, and that's why I say the advertising ecosystem is really, really hard. It's important to know that and kind of understand that when you go out and set on this path, there's a lot of things that you need to do in order to be successful and get to that Tomorrowland future. So we talk about options. You can take a boat and kind of go out and sail on these waters. The problem is no matter how big your boat is, big boat, bigger company, smaller boat, smaller company, you're still going to face all the same things, right? When things pop up and you hit boulders in there, and they're not going to be kind to bigger boats just because they're a bigger boat. You're still going to deal with all the same things. Option 2 is building that bridge to the future, gets you over the top of those treacherous waters and gives you the ability to build or walk across that easily and get to Tomorrowland that we want to be at. Building bridges takes a little bit longer than hopping on a boat, obviously, but it's the right path in order to getting to this future state and owning that revenue destiny. So now that we have a good landscape or understanding of the landscape and where things stand, with my time at Kevel, I've learned quite a bit, probably way more than just 3 key insights, but wanted to kind of highlight those into kind of 3 topics that we can really discuss here today. Number 1, data monetization and privacy can, and I repeat, should coexist together. So when you look at different sources, this is a BCG survey that was done recently, you have 2/3 of consumers, they want ads that are personalized to their interests. But then on the other side of that coin, you have half of consumers are uncomfortable with sharing their data to create personalized ads. That puts you as a publisher or marketplace in a very hard spot. Do you go take all that data, give it out to the networks that you're working with, or do you focus all in on the personalization side of things? I think when you join those two things together and do things kind of like how Amazon, Walmart, and Etsy and other major marketplaces have done, is you use that first-party data, you keep it in-house so that you own your own revenue destiny, like I was saying before, but you do it without selling it off, and it's a privacy-conscious way that allows the users to feel that they can trust you with your data. It also gives you the ability to then personalize those ads. If you look at like Instagram, is probably a great example of this. They have the most engagement of any ads ever. They get a bunch of sales from it, and it's really because of how personalized it is to how you interact with the site and what type of content you're interacting with. They use that. They don't sell that data off. They use that information for themselves to drive the most amount of revenue for their particular users. Another good example of this is Klarna. I know we've talked about this in a couple of sessions so far. What they've built is a highly secure, privacy-first ad product. They're sponsored placements that use that first-party data like I've been talking about to show that relevant content to the right person. That better data means better targeting for the advertisers, consistent user browser experience. You don't want to just slap something random in there. And then with all of those checkpoints, it allows them to generate a super high margin revenue stream. It allows them to control their own destiny from a revenue standpoint, but then also on the backside allows them to cut down their margins a little bit further. They've done a great job with this over the last year or so. Number 2 is rule your walled garden like an industry giant. I've talked a lot about Walmart, Etsy, Amazon. When I say walled garden, it means that they keep that data in-house. They keep that data in-house, and it allows them to control what that experience looks like and control everything that's going on within that walled garden. A good example of this is Chairish. They are a smaller marketplace that sells antique furniture. They were able to build a quick go-to-market like product promoted listings or sponsored listings platform. They built this in 2 weeks with one engineer, which is pretty remarkable. This identified an untapped revenue opportunity that's scaled, I think it's like 100% year over year, and it's drop dead simple. All they do, as a marketplace, you have all of the sellers coming in and adding all of their products. So if someone comes in and said, I want to sell a chair, they go and do that. They put it in, they put the name of it, they put the price, they do all that information. And then there's one little checkbox that says, do you want to promote this listing? And if you say yes, it says how much you want to spend on a daily basis. And then everything goes into the system, and then we have all the information from a targeting standpoint, and then immediately it is then targeted in different search results. Again, did that in 2 weeks, and you got to imagine the sellers are not crazy high-end digital advertisers. They just want to sell their chair, and that's what they were able to do in a pretty simple way that's generated a ton of revenue for them and allowed them to cut down on their margins on the backside. And when you look at this and you compare it to Walmart, Amazon, they have everything that they have, and they did it in 2 weeks. The only thing that's different on this chart is it took Walmart and Amazon about a year or two to build this out with hundreds of engineers. Chairish did the same thing in 1 year, in less than 1 year, in 2 weeks, and pretty remarkable what they've been able to do. Really, the third one, and I've seen this countless times as I've talked to people in the past, is it is hard. We talked about that. No one kept their hand up. It's a very hard problem to solve. It's also extremely lucrative. But a lot of times, companies will just delay and delay and delay because of how hard it is and how much resources it takes. But it really doesn't need to be that way. You need to invest in that ad platform, especially when we're talking about a potential recession looming. Having a high margin revenue stream allows you to really take that to the next level and not have to focus as much on the margins on the other side. When you look at, it's another BCG survey, companies with high digital maturity are more than twice as likely to grow market share as opposed to ones that are not. And digital maturity comes with ads. You look at someone like Netflix. They've been saying that they're not going to have ads for the entirety of their company, and now they're in an absolute race to get ads onto their platform in the next by the end of this year, which is extremely fast, and they need to get on it pretty quickly. But when you look at like Walmart, Amazon, Etsy, they've scaled immensely and grown their market share, and ads are a big piece of that. You look at Amazon, $7.9 billion in ad revenue alone. That allows them to focus less on their retail business and more on, like from a margin standpoint, and more on the advertising business where they're probably getting 80-90% margins. So kind of in conclusion, like a lot of this, I'm required to talk about Kevel. I know we talked more about the industry, but this was all able to be done with Kevel from like Cherish, Klarna, and a bunch of other use cases due to all the things that you need to have in a high-performing ad platform. So like auction, pricing, first-party data, geo-targeting, geo-radius, pacing, all of these things are very important when you go out and run an ad platform. And that kind of goes to the uncharted waters that we're talking about earlier on, and they're really needed in order to scale this up. That's really it. I think one thing I did want to say is, we do have a contest running, so feel free to talk to us out at our booth. We're giving away some cool gifts. I think it's like AirPods, Oculus, and things like that. So feel free to come chat with us, and we can talk about more of the learnings that we've had over the years.
And have we got any Slido questions? So just wait. What sort of revenue improvement can you expect from implementing your technology on a marketplace's side?
Yeah, it really depends. So, if you have no revenue and you're not doing ads, it's going to be a pretty big lift, right? It really just depends on the number of users, what kind of data you have to be able to do that. A lot of our customers will start with a kind of crawl, walk, run type of scenario where they just do simple ads, see how it works, and get a good sense of how they have to price that out or how they can price it out, and then go from there further on. So, in a Cherish example, they were able to see pretty massive gains, upwards of millions of dollars per year to launch that with a pretty small site. So it really just depends on what how you take it and where you go from there.
And how big is a typical kind of development time scale and size of team and so on to get this implemented?
Yeah, that also depends. Like Cherish, for example, was one engineer in 2 weeks. But then there's also, they were very basic from that standpoint. But then you have other customers like Klarna, they put an entire team on it. We're also working with companies like Expedia, who have an entire, basically, company size that are working on the ads program.
Yeah.
So it really just depends on what kind
you're
of
trying to do and
resources
what the
you
scale
want,
is and
what
so
you
on.
want to.
But you can start simple and just progress.
Yeah.
Do you have a revenue share model if we implement and we allow listers to boost their own ads?
Yeah, so we like to be known more as the infrastructure platform as opposed to the media house that would provide those ads. As such, we don't have a revenue share model. It's all SaaS-based pricing.
Yeah.
So it's similar to like AWS, where you launch your entire servers on there. It's the same as us. Like
Yeah.
you build an ad server, and you just pay for usage on what you use for it.
And so there's nothing that relates to your revenue scale at all within that.
Nope.
It's purely a cloud-based usage
Yeah,
fee.
yeah, which we consider a good thing. When
Yeah.
you look at revenue share, when you first start out, it could be pretty high. Obviously, when it's zero revenue, that is pretty low, obviously, as well, too. But we want to work with the publishers and the marketplaces to be able to build this up. And having that infrastructure is the key part of that, and not taking away revenue as they scale, because that could be millions of dollars per year that you'd be paying to us when we just want to help you kind of take back the internet from these media giants.
So an unusually generous approach,
Yeah.
given everybody else's approaches nowadays. Thank you very much, and please
Thank
thank
you.
Ron.